Hey, and welcome back to my channel where we're going over every single daily spoiler for the Raging Echoes upcoming league. Today is day 5, and let's get right into it. So today, Jagex revealed that every single item that's a component that combines with items from other regions will now drop as a completed item. Not necessarily every single item that requires components will drop completed, but the ones that do cross multiple regions will drop completed. And I'll talk about kind of each individual region, the bosses, and each drop. Note that the image that Jagex revealed as a part of this spoiler is absolutely a fantastic tool to kind of use to kind of pick our regions. And I'll talk about that as we go through every single region. So first off, let's start off with Misthalin and Karamja. These are the default base starter regions that everyone will have access to when we start. So everyone will have access to all these bosses, and you're going to be able to kill every single one here and get every single item. Most notably, what's new here are the Tormented Demons. Normally, the Tormented Demons Ember Light will require an Arc Light, but now you will just be able to get an Ember Light directly without an Arc Light. Jagex did clarify that the Tormented Synapses will have an adjusted inspect view where you can convert them either to an Ember Light, a Scorching Bow, or a Purging Staff. So that's a really nice convenience of life. You get the Synapse, you just right click and make it the item of your choice. Right. Also, remember, don't forget drop rates are boosted, so it should be pretty easy to get those. If you're like me and you're going dry on your synapses, hopefully that'll be much easier in leagues. Also, I want to point out here that we have Abyssal Sire, and the bludgeon drops in 3 pieces. That's not combined because, again, this is all within the same region and the same boss, and so Jagex is not combining those items, so you will still have to farm every single individual piece. But items that do require multiple regions, like the Tormented Demon Synapse as well as the Arc Light, will come combined automatically at the top end of the items. Moving forward, we're on to the desert. Here you can see that the KQ Echo drop is here, but more importantly, the drops from the Leviathan, you're going to drop the entire completed rings, right? That's really important. And also to highlight here in this nice mechanic is Jagex has highlighted that the uniques will drop as well, the Scythe and the T-Bow from the Tombs of Amasket. So as I was mentioning, this is a really cool tool for us to kind of use to kind of pick our regions. If you think about it, hey, I want to do this content like Tombs of Amasket or the Leviathan. If you're like me and you're going to want to practice some of these bosses and learn and get better at them. Last time, if you remember, I was doing the Tombs of Amasket raid to get better and learn it. I was doing my own solos by the end of it, which was great. And so I would recommend using this tool to kind of be like, hey, this boss is in this region. It has these drops, which are cool. I want to go after here, right? They've also highlighted things like Temperos, dropping all of the uniques there. And though Temperos is a skilling boss, it is a boss nonetheless. And I'm really glad that Jagex put this out there because it kind of tells you about what kind of content you can expect from that region. Moving on to Mauritania, you can now see that the Guardians will drop the completed Guardian boots, so you no longer need to get the Bandos boots to combine with the Guardian boots. You will just drop the Guardian boots directly, which is a really nice kind of best in slot melee if you get Mauritania and you don't have access to D boots or Primordials, which is great, which are both, I think, unlocked by Asgarnia entirely. And so that's a nice slot to fill out. In addition to that, we have the brand new boss Araxor, which would normally drop a part of the Rancor amulet, but now you don't need to combine that with the Amulet of Torture, which no longer need to go to Kandarin to get the Amulet of Torture. And Araxor just becomes super duper more powerful, right? This is going to be your best in slot melee amulet. And as you can see here, this is a really good melee region overall. And you're probably going to want to go to Barrows, get the gear, maybe farm some Guardians to get the gloves to make your Barrows gear even more powerful. And now you're super juiced up to farm the Theater of Blood, which now has a completed Avernic hilt defender drop. You no longer need to get the hilt and then get Asgarnia, grind out the Dragon Defender and combine them. I personally might still go Asgarnia just because the dog sword just looks really, really cool. But if you're choosing not to go Asgarnia, you will have access to the entire Avernic Defender at the Theater of Blood. In addition to that, you can also see that the 2 most unique drops, the T-Bow and the Shadow, are also dropping from Theater of Blood. So a good reason to kind of not go all 3 raid regions because you're going to be able to unlock all 3 top-end weapons, including the Scythe, which does drop from the Theater of Blood. And speaking of raids, moving on to current, we have the Chambers of Xeric, where you now will drop the entire completed Kodai wand, so you no longer need to unlock the desert to get the Master Wand, and no longer having to farm the Mage Training Arena, which, though, if you do unlock the desert, you probably do want to farm Mage Training Arena. And don't forget, it has been buffed since we last used it, and so that will be faster. But again, you will drop the entire Kodai wand from Chambers of Xeric. Now, also, the Chambers of Xeric will drop the Shadow, and so will you really want to use the Kodai wand if you get the Shadow? Probably not, but if you do drop the Kodai wand first, it's a great item to use until you do get the Shadow, assuming you're going to be farming Chambers of Xeric for the Shadow. And the Scythe also drops from Chambers of Xeric as well, but more importantly, Alchemical Hydra. This is amazing. The entire Bone Crusher necklace drops from Alchemical Hydra. I know what you're thinking, right? Infinite prayer sustain while doing Slayer in the dungeons. Yeah, that's real nice. But yeah, that's probably only going to see so much use, maybe for a few days. I don't see that item really getting a lot of use, but it's nice that Jagex included it. It is a great prayer necklace slot. But more importantly, actually, are the Ferocious Gloves. They drop entirely. You just combine, you just get them, and then you just use them. It's great. In addition to that, also the Dragon Hunter Lance, which is also really powerful in the Chambers of Xeric. So probably want to rush Slayer, get to Alchemical Hydra, get the Dragon Hunter Lance. You can use that in Chambers of Xeric, which would be really, really nice. Overall, really well-rounded slot. In addition to that, I just want to kind of highlight again here, you can see the bosses and the drops. You can see Hespori, you can see Wintertot. Again, it's a great tool to kind of figure out what type of content and which bosses you want to farm and use that. This is making current look really, really nice, actually. All right, Taranwin. Most notable drop here is actually the Zulrah. You're now going to drop the entire Toxic Trident, which is really nice. Another reason to not go Kandarin. I don't really know what Jagex is trying to do except just make nobody want to do Kandarin. When we get to Kandarin, you'll see that there's only 3 bosses here, and so you're like, oh, there's not that much content in Taranwin. But I think Taranwin is a really good utility place because you do get a really good amount of gear from the Gauntlet. You get a ton of money from the Gauntlet if you're not going to go Golden God. Zulrah is also a relatively fun boss to kill, and Zelkano is a good PVM boss. So Taranwin is a pretty well-rounded region. The prayer bonus you're going to get from that new blessing is super powerful. So don't sleep on Taranwin. I think the armor bonuses for melee are really nice. And overall, I think Taranwin has some really good just gear, and it's like a really good utility. So you probably get this to get some really cool gear and items that would help you in your other regions and other boss grinds as well. And Zulrah is pretty fun. If you haven't really learned and mastered Zulrah, I would definitely recommend going to Taranwin and doing that. It could be a lot of fun. All right, moving on to the Wilderness. So here, most important thing I want to call out is the Void Waker does not drop completed from any of the bosses. You still have to farm the various bosses in the Wilderness for all the pieces and then combine it, and then you will have the full Void Waker. And so Jagex, notice this, that it's combined for the entire region, and so you don't need it. So most important things here are really just the King Black Dragon dropping that sword and shield. You get that, and then you go farm Corp. It's really nice. I think the Wilderness is a really self-sustained kind of region where all the items kind of complement each other, and they kind of want you to go hop around and farm all the bosses, to combine the shield pieces, to combine the Void Waker pieces. I think overall Wilderness is going to have a lot of fun, and as you can see here, it's got a nice variety of boss content, which I think is really, really nice. Okay, Fremennik. This is an interesting one because you do drop the rings from the Dagonoth Kings, but instead Jagex decided to just give you the entire Magus ring. I think they're probably thinking that who the hell cares, because you're really going to go after the Echo ring instead. That is so much more powerful than all of these rings, and it becomes a best in slot for all combat types, and so you really don't need to worry about switching rings, and that's just one less switch to bring in to your raids. Fremennik is looking super juicy with the ring and the amulet. I think that's super powerful. In addition to that, I don't know why I always forget that Muspah is part of the Fremennik region, and so the Ancient's icon will drop entirely as the Ancient Scepter, which is really nice, so you don't have to unlock, the desert region. Also, if you get the book, then you can access the Ancient Spellbook, and this will be kind of like a really nice best in slot for Ancient Magics for a while. And then obviously Duke will drop the Virtus set, which will be really, really good. And so you have a really nice, well-rounded magic setup here. Vorkath will not upgrade to the Bone Crusher necklace. It'll just drop the regular Dragon Bone necklace. So that is interesting that Jagex decided to not provide the upgrades, but just provide the base items only. And so it's like if you get a shard that would combine with an item, that would become that new item entirely. But if you're dropping a base item that you can actually equip, you don't actually get that item, right? So that's kind of how it seems to work here. Again, Fremnik is looking really nice. It's got a really cool Echo Boss with really nice Echo drops. Also, the Echo Bosses, I assume, will drop the regular rings as well. So let's say, you know, you're going a little dry on the Echo rings and you drop the other rings. You know, you're going to get good utility out of it. In addition to that, you just have some really nice drops here. Another thing I want to call out is the DT2 bosses will drop all the pieces of the axe, and that was existing in the last league as well. So you'll be able to kind of make your own axe depending on, as long as you have one DT2 boss, you'll be able to complete an entire axe with it. Kandarin. Okay, so is there anything to say here? The Jagex mods on Discord said it themselves. Okay, there's nothing left. All right, there's nothing I can say or do that will save Kandarin. So let's just move on from here. Nothing to see here. All right, Asgarnia. Ooh, this is, I've done Asgarnia for the last 2 leagues, and I wasn't sure if I really wanted to do Asgarnia again. You know, it's been really fun to kill the various, you know, generals, but I don't really know if I wanted to do it again. However, this dog sword, oh, it is looking so juicy. Because now it is confirmed that it's dropping the entire dog sword, not a piece. So I don't have to even farm the shards from each bosses. I remember I was going dry on like shard 2 or something, and that was really frustrating because I had like multiple hilts but no shard 2, and that was just really annoying. Now you don't have to worry about that problem. You just farm Cerberus until you get the sword. In addition to that, Cerberus drops really good items. It now drops the completed Eternal Boots, which is really nice. Now, obviously, the other 2 stones you are going to have to fuse with the Ranger Boots or the Dragon Boots, which are both available, or Ranger Boots are from clues. Dragon Boots are just available in the region from spiritual creatures, and so that's pretty straightforward. The Smoldering Stone, I don't think gives you an option to inspect and just combine it, so you would have to get the respective dragon weapons to combine it to the Infernal Tools. I'm not too worried about the Smoldering Stone, to be honest. I'm just looking at here, and I'm like, wow, look at all these bosses, look at all the cool drops. Also to point out here that next will still drop the Torva pieces, and so you will need to combine the Torva pieces with General Garador's Bando's drops to make the full completed Torva sets. Same thing with next, with the Nile Horn, you will have to combine that with the Armadyl crossbow to make the Zerite crossbow. So again, these are completely self-region locked items, and so you will have to farm the various pieces. But I think it still simplifies a lot of it, because I think I'd probably kill the bosses for the different challenges and things and whatever, get a few drops and items, but I'm not too worried about farming the full God Swords. Instead, I'm probably just going to focus on Cerberus and farm the God Sword. Now, I'm not 100% sold and convinced on Asgarnia yet. I don't know what my 3 regions are, especially because I don't know what region I would be losing to sacrifice to this, but the Dog Sword is really interested in me. Also, DT2 boss, the Whisperer, will drop the, all the axe pieces as well, including, it'll also drop the Bellator ring, right? So there's no ring drops here, so that'll be a nice way to kind of round out some of your jewelry equipment. But if you're like me and you're also thinking about going Fremnik, well, you don't have to worry about that. All right. Last but not least, we have Varlamore. Okay, this is a brand new region. This did not exist in the last league launch. The Forest Coliseum will drop the entire boots directly, so you don't have to worry about combining them with the Guardian boots that you would get from Mauritania. So the Echo boots are just a full Forest Coliseum drop, which is really nice, in addition to the Echo drops that you get from the Forest Coliseum. Now that, I think, is really going to be limited to the expert of players, because the Coliseum is already one of the most difficult content in the game. In addition to that, you will now have to fight an Echo variant of that boss. And so even though we are on like super training wheels with all the league's relics and the combat masteries that are to come out, it will still be a relatively difficult challenge. That's in my opinion. So I'm not really looking at the Forest Coliseum, but even aside from that, the Moons of Peril are phenomenal armor sets. Really easy, really basic gear needed to get into that. If you just make money and buy the gear from Karamja, the Obsidian gear, you you'll easily be able to farm the Moons of Peril straight off the back, and then you can use the Moons gear to go on to the next boss, and it has a really nice chaining effect. To me, Varlamore seems like a really good gear starter region with the Moons of Peril gear, and so that's why I'm really loving this picture that Jagex put together, because it's giving me a real clear visual of like, oh, I do this content, I get this gear, I go on to the next boss, I get that gear, and then I move on to the next. I'm kind of creating like a mental chain map going on in my mind. Also, Huey's here, brand new boss, gives a really nice wand. It's really powerful. The Tome of Earth, sure, if you're going to use that. But the Huey hides are going to give you a really good range slot gear, which is really nice. So you can use that. If you're planning on going desert, you can do Toa, and you can get that for the upgrade pieces. But again, the Huey gear, I think, should be more than enough. I'm kind of suspecting to see that like all these regions kind of have like well-rounded gear for all the gear types, right? The Moons of Peril obviously are just really well-rounded. You have Barrows in Mauritania. But again, overall, it seems like a really solid play to go Varlamore. I'm really liking this region. And lastly, of course, Vardorvis is going to drop all the axe pieces as well, in addition to the completed Altor ring. Okay, so that's what I mentioned. All the Soul Reaper axes are dropping from the DT2 bosses. All the raids will drop all the unique top tier weapons, the Twisted Bow, Tunic and Shadow, and Scythe. In addition to that, the Dragon Pickaxe from Volcanic Mine, which we all have access to, will drop completed from Fossil Island, which is really nice. Also, the Brimstone chest will give you the completed Dragon Hasta, so you don't have to fix it. If you go Konar and get Current, you'll have access to a completed Dragon Hasta. And then, like I said, the Synapses, you'll be able to inspect them. Overall, really nice. My thought to you is go and look at this infographic that Jagex put together. I'll put a link in the description below. It's a really nice tool to kind of pick and choose which bosses and content you have, and then whichever areas you kind of circle the most, that's probably the region you want to do based off of the content that you want to do this league. That said, we haven't seen all of the relics and unlocks, and so still keep your eyes open and an open mind as to what comes out and what you really want to do. Thanks again so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in. If you did find today's video helpful, I definitely recommend hitting the subscribe button. I'm going to be releasing these videos daily on every daily spoiler and giving you my analysis and breakdown. If you found it helpful, definitely give it a smash the like button. And any thoughts and ideas you have, definitely leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.